as awakening happens, we just keep bringing more of the unconscious to the conscious mind. And once you excavate it enough, so you excavate down enough, and then you get to go up a level, and now you have a bigger picture of the world. Like I have a clear picture of myself, and now I have a clear picture of the world, and now I'm experiencing more peace and clarity of thought. And then I go back down, and then I'm able to come back up. If you look at the logo for Full Stack, the Full Stack logo is an old Sanskrit symbol that is basically demonstrating just that. You have to go down in order to go up. You'll see it. They're interlocked, right? Got to go down to go up, down, up, down, up. Things are moving in a cycle. It's not just one direction. And again, you don't realize that until you've been digging long enough and you notice, oh, there's more than one awakening.
Impact some men today. I think we're going to do a great job. Men today are chasing success, but often feel isolated, overworked, and unfulfilled. Welcome to the Modern Man Podcast, where we connect men in pursuit of their potential. Join us as we embrace discomfort, cultivate community, and put wind in each other's sails. Now, before we jump into the episode, I first want to make sure you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and share this episode with someone else you know can get value from it. And to the men that are listening and watching, I encourage you to check out the Noble Knights Men's Group. It's a men's community where you can find the support, accountability, and the mentorship you need to achieve your goals. And I'm excited because we're getting some wind in our sails from my guest today. He is a performance philosopher, entrepreneur, and conscious leadership coach, helping high-performing men and founders align strength, spirit, and strategy. Best known as the former host of Barbell Shrugged, one of the most influential fitness podcasts in the world, reaching over 1 million monthly downloads at its peak. Since then, he has transitioned from physical performance coaching to teaching emotional resilience, sovereignty, and self-mastery, guiding men to live with more awareness, freedom, and flow. It is a pleasure to have my friend Mike Bledsoe on the podcast today. Mike, good to see you, brother.
Good to see you, Ted. I like that intro. Yeah, really.
Yeah,
I mean, it's all accurate. It's all accurate, but like you're so good at putting it together. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm just following the script, man. And you wrote it, and you lived the life that we're talking about. And I love getting out of the way and giving the guest and the audience a chance to get acquainted. And I always start with the question of, you walk into a room, nobody knows you, no one knows who you are, what you do. How do you introduce yourself?
Oh, I usually just tell them my name and then wait for them to talk, and then I adjust what I'm going to say based on whatever they share. So there's I'm like the worst person for elevator pitches. Oh, this is what I do. But I'm a serial entrepreneur, and most of my entrepreneur ventures have been in the coaching space, starting with CrossFit in 2007, and currently is with Full Stack right now, which is our community. And I do a lot of consulting, and I've consulted in the supplement space. I now consult in the peptide space, and I do a lot of I do a little bit of one-on-one coaching for influencers as well. So I have my fingers in a lot of pies, and a part of that is because my mind needs to be in a lot of different things, because I'm a synthesizer of sorts. Is I need a lot of different data points from things that don't seem related, and then somehow in the background, my mind figures out how to put them together and then give it to other people so it makes sense for them.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, starting with where we're at now from where you've been, the many lives that you've lived, from Barbell Shrugged, Bledsoe Life, now the Full Stack podcast, something that we've launched together. What is true for Mike now that wasn't true before? What was a big shift or a change in your life that kind of shapes what you're doing now?
Right now it feels like I'll be 44 in 2 days. And this feels like more of a culmination of everything I've done up until this point. And so I've had many different shifts. I mean, you said the right words, which is like, you live many lives. You know,
Yeah.
I've followed some like conventional and unconventional paths. I was homeschooled all the way through high school. I went into the Navy, so I did the military, and then I got out and I got a degree. And before I even finished the degree program, I opened up a CrossFit gym. Not because I wanted to be a business owner. I tell people I was a reluctant entrepreneur. I didn't even know what the word was when I opened up my gym. And so I opened up the gym thinking, oh, I just want to hang out in a gym all the time. I love this stuff. I don't want to do anything else. I'll do this till the day I die. Just hanging out in the gym is the only thing that sounds appealing to me. Of course, I outgrow that. I watched this podcast, YouTube revolution start. I jumped right in, started that in 2012 with Barbell Shrugged. Hit some walls in my own development. You know, I chased fitness thinking that six pack abs would get me chicks and, you know, earn me love. And then I started learning about business. I was like, oh, chicks don't really care about the abs that much. And then I was like, I'll make a bunch of money. Oh, they, you know, not the type of relationships I want to pull in from making a lot of money. Like, you know, like um, wasn't satisfying. And so I the, it ended up turning into a lot of personal development, a lot of being introduced to the right people at the right time, and going on a journey of self discovery. And I'm a fairly obsessive person. Most of the things that I've done in my life, I don't suggest other people do. They don't have to do what I did to be able to get some benefits. Um, but yeah, I mean, I went down like the most hardcore path you could go down in fitness. I went down a
Yeah.
hardcore path in business. I went down at one point in my business, I wanted to build $100 million tech company. That's what I was working on at one point. And then, you know, I dive into emotional development and mindset work, and which took me down to the jungle, sitting with shamans down in Peru and Colombia, and I just everything I do is to the extreme, and which makes me a good person to consult with. It makes me a
Yeah.
good person. I know if you flip enough stones over, I know what's under those stones, and a lot of them totally unnecessary to look under, but some of them
Yeah.
have gold under there, and so that's what I that's how I've lived my life that way, and that's the value that I bring to other people, and what I enjoy bringing to the table.
I can say from the time we've spent together and my gauge is I don't see you as the type of person to dip your toe in the water. You're gonna jump in the deep end without even knowing how deep it is. You just whoop,
Yeah,
go go
yeah.
into it. Which like as you mentioned has its benefits. And as you go through that, I hear a lot of self-awareness in you right now. Like, you know, happy early birthday, by the way,
Thank you.
coming up on 44. You have this self-awareness. When did that self-awareness piece come into it? Was it during the Navy? Was it through the self-development journey after the CrossFit gyms? When was the awareness of like, oh, this is how I operate and this is what I'm going to do really solidify?
You know, my wife was asking me this recently. She's like, "Why are you so different? Like, why you're?" She's like, "You're an interesting creature." Um, I would say I was very inquisitive at a very young age.
Mhm.
I remember going to church, but then journaling about meditation and fasting, even though they weren't talking about that. There was these ideas of like, of what is the spirit and what does this actually mean, and then being engaged in conversations that w- I would try to engage people in those conversations. I didn't get back what I was looking for. So I had a lot of inquiry at a young age. I'd say the self-awareness, I would say that there's a lot of deep inquiry. And I recognized that I felt like I was different than other people in some ways that most people aren't experiencing. And that's not like a brag or anything. It's just like I don't, I don't quite fit in here. And part of that's, you know, probably being homeschooled, but um, I actually wanted to fit in. and I suppressed that a bit when I went in the Navy. And then when I was in the Navy, that suppression really couldn't hold me very well. And so I knew I was going to get out. But there was an experience that I had in 2013 that allowed me to, I would say that was like an awakening of sorts. There's been multiple awakenings throughout my life. A lot of times people have one awakening and they call it the awakening. And if you keep going, there's going to be more, I promise. And I had a lot of self-awareness in one respect, but I didn't see necessarily, I felt disconnected from the world until about 2013. And in 2013, I went to a business conference because I wanted to learn how to make money online. And I had done a good job with my gyms, but I had this big YouTube following and I wasn't making any money from it. And so I went to this conference, and at this conference, there was a lot of personal development work being done there. Like day one, the bonus day was like learning how to learn. I go, all right, that sounds interesting. I'll show up to that. And got a lot out of it. And then, but throughout that week, I started getting there was an exercise on empathy that really hit me. And I was at this conference for 7 days. And at the end of the 7 days, like in the middle of the conference, I got this intuitive hit of like, go eat some psychedelic mushrooms. And it wasn't, it was kind of out of the blue because up until that point, the only safe drug that I was familiar with was alcohol, and and maybe I smoked a little bit of weed, but I was like, I don't do drugs, and so I was pretty straight laced in that way. But I got the hit to eat some mushrooms. And so I get home and I was able to track down some mushrooms. And then a couple days after the conference, I did a really good job of setting up a really intentional space for myself, which most people don't do their first time. And I was divinely held and led. I look back at that first time and I was like, oh, I did a lot of things right. When I talked to other people when the first time they did mushrooms and they didn't have any guidance, they did a really poor job of setting the scene. And in that experience, I learned two things. One is, without going into like a trip report, but the two big things I got out of the experience was, oh, everything that I'm experiencing in my world, it's an interpretation. And I am creating everything. Like I am very powerful in my ability to create my reality. And so it was a very empowering moment where I gained a level of ownership of reality that probably had been explained to me in books I had been reading up until that point, or I had heard people talk about it, but I had a visceral experience of it in the psychedelic journey. And then I also connected to empathy for the first time in my life and really learned like, oh, I'm not listening to other people. I was assuming that if anyone disagreed with me, they were stupid. And I was able to expand the way I was interpreting the world and become very curious about other people's experiences. And that was a really pivotal moment that really kicked off. When I tell people, I've been in personal development for 12 years, since 2013. And I can point at that was the moment where I had a really profound aha. I'd been doing things differently. I definitely thought differently than most people up to that point. But that was the part where I go, oh, I am the creator of my reality, and there are other creators of their reality, and I get to be curious about them and actually get to experience some level of intimacy and connection with people. And that really was the first time. That was a rabbit hole. And that's when I started questioning things. that's when I go, oh, they lied to me about the mushrooms. So what else, what else is there that is a mainstream narrative that is inaccurate? And so I kept digging around, digging around, digging around. And it wasn't so much like mainstream narratives that I found. It was more of my own personal narratives that was questioning and realizing that, wow, I was wrong about this and that. What else have I been wrong about? And so
Hmm.
really started digging. And from there, I started engaging with work, which I thought previously was silly. I thought the idea of doing emotional development was silly, or talking about, things that happened in my childhood were silly, or, um, you know, experiencing and showing emotions were silly, or weak. And I, I, I got really curious. I left
Yeah.
where I was living to surround myself with other people who were having other experiences. I went to Burning Man. I signed up for leadership development programs. I went down to South America to drink ayahuasca. Um, I engaged with coaches, and I really went hard in the paint. Went to meditation retreats, all while running a business successfully. And so it was, every time I was having some type of breakthrough for myself, I was getting a better read on how the world operates and how just humans in general, how we all develop, and what does that mean culturally, and how is the culture developing, and how are these
Hmm.
things the same and how are they different? So
Yeah.
that that was like the moment that triggered this avalanche of curiosity.
From 2013, I know you mentioned opening your CrossFit gym in 2012 and the success that
No,
you've had with
2007,
2007. It was the Barbell Shrugged was 2012, right?
2012. Mm-hmm.
Um, when it comes to CrossFit gyms, and obviously looking at your resume, there's a history of success. And I know the term high performance is used a lot. And the way I see it is yeah, people say how you do one thing is how you do everything, but having success in many different arenas, um, do you credit your self development to that success? Where do you, I guess, put that credit to when it comes to success, whether it's Barbell Shrug, CrossFit gyms, or the multiple businesses you've started and exited since?
If iron sharpens iron, so does one man sharpen another. But if you're a man and you're alone or listening to this, then who sharpens you? What's going on, guys? Ted Phaeton here, host of the Modern Man podcast, also founder of the Noble Knights Mastermind Group. And I'm just out here encouraging you to find your circle. Maybe you're on a personal growth journey and nobody around you understands the new mentality that you're possessing. That's okay. You can find an online community that will pour into you, will navigate your goals and navigate your obstacles, share their experiences, resources, and more. Join the Noble Knights Mastermind Group and try us out for free to tap into a community of men helping each other scale up and reach their goals.
Check out themodernmanpodcast.com.
Well, my relationship to fear, one of the things that I've learned over the years is, for a long time, my relationship to fear was very different than most people. Most people experience fear and they back off. I, for a long time, used fear as a signal to move forward.
Mm,
And the reason I can, at the time, I was proud of it. I was like, oh yeah. I was like, fear doesn't have shit on me. Like I've got fear's number. Um, and, but the truth was like, I was living a life where I was constantly scaring the shit out of myself.
yeah.
And my nervous system was so accustomed to being afraid that anything that created peace, I would make me uncomfortable. So I was much more comfortable in a space of fear. And so joining the military and signing up to go into the Navy SEAL program, BUDS, I was everybody's terrified of doing that. Like, yeah, I was scared to do that. Opening my own gym was terrifying. I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, getting out of the military was also scary. That's why a lot of people don't get out, or they have a hard time when they do get out. Going and posting my thoughts on the internet and starting a YouTube channel, a podcast, having no idea what I was doing. And there was nobody teaching you how to podcast back then.
Yeah.
I was scaring the shit out of myself all the time. And so, yeah, on the outside, there was a lot of success, but on the inside, I was just in a constant fight or flight. And I was somebody who would just fight. I would engage with whatever that was scaring me. And it's funny because I hear a lot of like especially former military guys, they glamorize the moving through fear thing. And there's some obviously benefits to that. Like people who have that experience of fear are going to achieve a lot of, are going to have a lot more achievements than someone who allows the fear to hold them back. But at the same time, I wasn't really enjoying the success because I was constantly doing things that scared the shit out of me. And so where that eventually brought me was enough personal development where I'm in the process of rewiring my nervous system and realizing, whoa, I don't know peace. And experiencing peace isn't, I could experience it just for a moment and then I would like do something to throw it off. I would cause a little bit of chaos. So even though it created a lot of achievement, it also caused me to be held back in my achievement because if things got too good, I would throw a pebble in the pond. And so, it's a double-edged sword. And so where I'm at now is, okay, I have a much different relationship to fear now. It doesn't control me. It was controlling me before. It was like making me engage with it. So now I'm in a much more neutral place with it where fear doesn't scare me away from doing something, but it also doesn't like force me into doing something. And I can be much more objective and make a better choice and experience a lot more peace because of
Yeah.
that.
I've noticed, and just hearing you mention fear, a lot of different entrepreneurs and high performers use different fuels for pushing forward. Like our body's the vehicle, but perhaps it's anger that drives this person's success, fear that drives another person's success. It could be a loved one and a promise made that drives their success. And you mentioned the peace aspect. So if fear was one of the driving fuels that helped you get success in one realm of your life, how do you have the better relationship with fear now, but also don't sacrifice that success or get more potent success? Is peace the new fuel, or what would you say to somebody who just hasn't found their best approach to sustainable, joyful success?
Well, I mean, those are two different questions, but
Yeah.
because there was a period of time where I was pursuing peace and I became very passive in my achievements. It was I had to reconfigure my ability to do things
Mm,
because if I was running off of fear the whole time, and a lot of people, I mean, the ego knows this. The ego secretly says whatever it is that's been driving you to have success currently, if you take that away, then who will I be? Will my achievement go away? And that's still, and what's underneath that is the validation of like, oh, I need something to drive me so that I can have the experience in the world so that I can be validated. So we have to go into um, the conversation of codependence. And so I started rewiring fear, but then I got a little lazy in a lot of ways. And I had to look at my codependence as well. And so, because they were tied together. And so after unwinding a lot of that codependence and needing validation from the outer in order to feel like I'm enough, uh, then I was able to engage in business in a way that was like more fun and playful and enjoyable and not needing to do anything or to perform for anybody.
Mm.
I don't. It allows me to do things like launch a podcast or launch a new community, and not really have a lot of emotional response to how it's performing. Is the community growing the way I want it to? Did the podcast launch and get as many listeners as I wanted? Does that mean, if it doesn't do as much as I'd like, does that make me, stupid, or does it make me, not as good as I used to be, or whatever it is? And so, um, yeah, I wish I could say like, you can totally transform everything going on the inside, and you're going to immediately see external benefits, but that hasn't necessarily been the case for me. And when I'm now consulting and coaching clients, I my goal is for them to be able to achieve that peace, but I do it in a much more systematic and methodical way, and a lot slower than I was pursuing it, because
Mm.
what I realize now is you don't have to completely dismantle your life in order to find it. In fact, you'll probably get there faster if you don't just go destroying things. But again, there's that fear thing again. I did a lot of destroying things once I became dissatisfied with something in an effort to improve, because I wasn't afraid of losing it all. Well, I was afraid. There was a fear of like, what if you got down to $0? I'm like, let's see what that feels like. Like, let's drain the account. I did that at one point. Was like, can I lose it all? Can I not work and watch my bank account drop under $100 and be okay?
Ooh, ooh, what'd you learn in that experiment?
Well, what I was working with at that time was making sure that my personal value wasn't tied to my bank account. So I was working on my relationship to money. Again, I
Mm.
don't recommend anyone do that, and it's not necessary. I'm just the kind of person that has to find out what that's like. Like, I had to test it. Like, okay, I'll know when that happens, and if I can stay, if I'm peaceful and cool while that happens, then I've accomplished something.
Yeah, and we're so programmed, especially for the men listening to the show, is we learn to set goals, set KPIs, OKRs, and we aim for that, but we can fall down that trap of the results equating to our identity, the results
Hmm.
equating to the measure of self. Like, okay, I hit this goal. That means I am the businessman that I think I am. If I don't hit it, then it's like, okay, maybe I'm a complete fraud. And neither of them are true. And while KPIs are great for your business, for you to track and what gets measured gets managed, it's not a reflection of self. And that's where a lot of us fall in that trap. You
Well, I
mentioned
mean, what's
earlier on,
happening on the outside is a reflection of your own internal world, but not
ooh,
in the way that we think it is. So
okay.
it's it's if something I'm intending to do isn't working, it's not a reflection in that like I'm not the business isn't working, or it's not doing what I want it to do. It's not there's something wrong with me. And that's usually the how people want to use that as a reflection. The reflection is, what is out of alignment? Where am I looking for something outside of myself to feel okay? And if
Mm,
I can remove the importance of, if I can work towards something, towards a goal without it being important to me, these things seem opposite. But the more that we emotionally put weight in the accomplishment of something, the the more work it's going to take to get there. And so,
mm,
because that's going to create tunnel vision. And so, uh, the key is can I do both at the same time? Can this both be not important and I can obsess over it at the same time? Can I obsess
hmm,
over building my community or building my business? But at the end of the day, it doesn't really mean it doesn't hold any power over me. Now, if it holds power over me, then that's the reflection I'm getting, is that I am dependent on an outside source for my own knowing of who I am.
hmm.
And so, uh, yeah, both you can both it can both be unimportant, and you can obsess about it at the same time. But most
So
people
you're,
obsess because it's important.
yeah. So I almost hear what you're saying is your results is like the Chinese finger trap. When you're trying to pull it, it just gets tighter and it keeps you
Yeah.
from separating. But when you ease up and you relax it, the fingers slip out no problem. And it's almost counterintuitive in how that works.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, people will hear this and they may disagree and they go, well, what about so and so? And they'll start listing off names. They'll be listing off the 1% of the people out there that are incredibly successful and are telling you that you have to make it important and grind and all this. But what we don't realize is that for every person who has that message and is doing well, there's 1,000 people that are doing the same, that are behaving in the same way that aren't getting the result. And it's because the people who are successful don't always actually know why they're successful, and they think
Mm,
it's something else. So I learned this in athletics. When I was running Barbell Shrug, this became very apparent to me. Uh, I'd say in the first 50 episodes of that show, I was interviewing coaches and athletes mostly, some scientists as well. And what I really hated interviewing the athletes, the people who were the best at what they did, the people who were performing, the people that everyone looked up to, were the most boring interviews. You know why? Because they had no
they didn't
idea
know
why they were good at what they did.
talent and just work and they're
They
like,
had
just
no
go after
idea.
it.
But I would talk to the coaches. I would talk to the coaches, and they were rich with information. They had so much wisdom to share. And it was the coaches that were in the background not getting all the press that were really interesting. And I go, oh, these athletes don't know why they're good. The same thing happens in business. I mean, I swim in circles. Is that the right analogy metaphor? Not swim in
I'll
circles.
take it.
Swim in circles would be like yeah. I hang out in circles of people who have a high level of achievement. And most of them, uh, if you get talking to them, they don't really know how they got there. But then there's some that are really vocal about it, and they believe they know why, and this and that. But it's
Mhm.
usually there are successful people that know what got them there, but they're usually less vocal because they're not looking for the reward of being like, oh, you're doing great.
Mm. You said before about multiple awakenings. Um, and I know you said the body is a gateway to awakening. What do you mean by that?
So most people um, think that they need to go up. They're going up to awaken, like they're going up and out. If you go, they're connecting to something outside of themselves, which is not inaccurate, but uh, in order to actually transcend into the higher realms of consciousness, you first have to descend into the body because you have to know yourself. And so most people are kind of caught in this middle area of the mind, and they you know most people went to school, sat in a classroom from the age of 5 or 6 until maybe their mid-20s, and they were told to sit still, don't emote, don't have emotions, you'll get in trouble, we'll take away your recess, your physical activity. So we have an entire culture that has put the mind on a pedestal, the cognitive mind, the conscious thought processes, the memory, the regurgitation. That's all put on this pedestal, and we've been cut off from our body's intelligence. And so the body is full of 95% of the information. You can go look this up. There's a lot of research that suggests that about 5% of our consciousness we're aware of and is happening in the brain, prefrontal cortex. The rest of the intelligence is happening in the body. So your nervous system, is most concentrated in the skull, but it's distributed throughout the entire body as well. And that's giving you information. There's also a lot of your nervous system is distributed into the heart and into the gut. And so there's a lot of information coming from that area as well. And so the way it's understood now is the conscious mind primarily lives in the head and the subconscious mind lives in the body. It's informed by the fascia and the tissue of fascia. It's informed by the nervous system. It's informed by the heart, the gut, all of these things. And most people are completely cut off from that intelligence. They're cut off from their subconscious mind. When you start accessing the subconscious mind and bring the subconscious or the unconscious to consciousness, that's when we start having an awakening experiences. We're now aware of something that we were unaware of previously, and it's profound. So usually when someone says I had an awakening experience, it was a profound experience, and they now have a deeper knowledge about themselves. And because we're experiencing the world through our own awareness, it's actually a deeper awareness and an awakening to how the world works. So I'm having this deep awakening, and you can interpret it like a lot of people interpret it, this is how the world works, but also it can be interpreted as this is how I work. And sometimes people in their first awakening are more focused on this is how the world works. This is where the kooky conspiracy theorists kind of come out, is they've had an awakening experience and they're interpreting it as it's out there. Can you wake up? Can you see what's happening? It's like, yes, you're not inaccurate. What you're saying is also true, but also what's more important is turn that same awareness on yourself. Can you awaken to this is how I've been being? This is what I've been believing. There is no boogeyman out there. It's in here. And yes, are there nefarious things and characters going on around the world? For sure. But that's not within my control. What is within my control is what am I awakening to in myself and putting my attention there. And as I awaken to myself, all that stuff and the outside world holds way less power over me. With each awakening experience, you have the opportunity for the power to come back to yourself. And so you're continually bringing what's unconscious to the conscious mind, and you're able to then process it. And so one of the things that people miss out on is they have that profound awakening experience, and then they think that that's it. Oh, that was the one. Like I did it. Yeah. And I remember it was about a year and a half after I had like my first awakening experience, and I was hanging out with this really smart, tapped in dude. And I was like, hey, I'm at this party in San Diego with a bunch of heavy hitters. And I was like, oh, tell me about your awakening experience. And he goes, which one? And I go, and in that moment, I had that, that sense of like deep humility of,
yeah.
oh, I just showed my cards. Like I thought there was only one. And so I get talking to him, and I was like, oh, okay. And so then my awareness was raised to another level in that moment. I go, oh, there's more than one. And shortly after that, I go, oh, every single one of them is not as profound as the previous. And sometimes you're going to bump into something that's even more profound. Now, I'll tell you this, I'm still processing my first awakening moment. I'm still getting a deeper understanding of it. So there's different things to become aware of. And then there's the levels of awakening to the specific thing which you got the lesson. So for instance, in my first mushroom experience, I had the awakening of, oh, I am the creator of my reality. I had a felt sense of everything I'm experiencing in the world, I'm interpreting through my senses in my mind being the sixth sense. And I Uh, and I go, okay, I know what that means. And then, a decade later, I'm in a retreat and I'm going, oh, there's a whole other layer here. Like my belief that anything out here is even real and not me creating it in this very moment is actually ridiculous.
Hmm.
And so can you imagine the amount of levity that enters the conversation when all of this, when you start recognizing that everything is your own creation and you're responsible for all of it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's very empowering, very, very empowering. It's the most empowering perspective you can hold up, to my knowledge. Maybe I'll be proven differently at some point in the future. But this is all done by digging the beliefs and everything are these unconscious beliefs that are running the show live in the body. And so as awakening happens, we just keep bringing more of the unconscious to the conscious mind. And
Mm.
once you excavate it enough, so you excavate down enough, and then you get to go up a level and now you have a bigger picture of the world. Like I have a clear picture of myself. I now have a clear picture of the world. And now I'm experiencing more peace and clarity of thought. And then go back down and then I'm able to come back up. If you look at the logo for Full Stack, the Full Stack logo is an old Sanskrit symbol that is basically demonstrating just that. You have to go
Really?
down in order to go up. You'll see it. They're interlocked, right?
Yeah.
Got to go down to go up, down, up, down, up. Things are moving in a cycle. It's not just one direction. And again, you don't realize that until you've been digging long enough and you notice, oh, there's more than one awakening. I go down. Oh, I can go up. I go down.
Mm.
So the depth that I can get into my body will dictate the transcendent state in which I can reach and the clarity that I can and the objectiveness that I can experience in the world.
Yeah. One of the many ways I feel as though the body and really our physical being speaks to us is through emotion. And especially for a lot of listeners to this podcast, we talk to men a lot and we are known to suppress said emotions, right? Or we only
Yeah.
have default emotions. I'm happy or I'm angry. Ain't nothing in between. Ain't no color wheel over here. I'm just sticking with those two, red
Yeah.
and blue. That's it.
Yeah.
But the messaging we get from emotions could be so profound and so potent. So I'd love for you to speak about your relationship with emotion, some of how the men listening could have a better relationship with their emotions and actually learn what their body or really their heart's trying to tell them or their gut is trying to tell them when certain emotions arise.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'll set this up a little bit first. And so, you probably got a little taste of this because you're in the full stack community. I put together a little course,
Yeah.
which I have not completed yet, but just a little bit that's in there may be enlightening for people. And that is, most people, if I ask them what their first language is, they're going to say English or Spanish or Chinese or whatever it is. And that's not true. Your first language is emotion. And so when you're born, you don't have words. You don't have verbal language. You have emotion. A baby cries to get attention. It coos. It giggles. It emotes. It's having emotion and having an emotional experience. And we've through there's a really good book on this called The Five Personality Patterns, which isn't your typical personality book. It's a book that talks about how different emotional patterns are developed in a child when they're young, and we maintain those emotional patterns as we get older. And so the way that the emotional energy moves in the body is different from person to person. It's unique. Now we can categorize these. Some people, the emotions want to come out, right? And that would be like an aggressive pattern. Some people's energy goes down into the ground. Some people's energy goes up out of their head. They have a leaving pattern. And so there's all these different patterns of how we cope with overwhelm. So you have a child. She's been
Mhm.
overwhelmed, yes or no?
Yeah, oh yeah. She has.
Yeah. And so she has a distinct energetic pattern of when that overwhelm hits the system, how she behaves. Have you watched other children hit overwhelm and behave differently?
I have not been that intuitive to other kids, but I do
Pay
know my daughter's outlet.
pay attention. Well, they're all going to respond, but they're going to respond differently. Some kids will
Mm,
withdraw, or some kids will disconnect, and it really, I won't go into why the different patterns emerge the way they do, but a lot of it's just learned from their parents. And what's really cool is you'll start to see how these energetic patterns shape the physical form of the body. So I can look at your physical form of the body, and I can tell you that you're a rigid pattern. Like you hold a rigid pattern. Um,
yeah.
and the rigid pattern is like, if I start, when you're overwhelmed, when you're stressed, do you seek order?
Mostly, yeah.
Yeah,
As
and
scattered as I am, I try and put things together.
yeah, like when you're really stressed, maybe you start, doing the laundry, or making sure things are, you start getting strict on your schedule, and like, I got to do this, and then I got to do this, and then I got to do this. So that would be an example of like how a rigid pattern shows up in an adult. But also, you tend to like the shape of your body, it becomes more rigid. So somebody who has like a rigid pattern their body is gonna be, uh, it's not gonna be thin and it's not gonna be thick, but there's gonna be a lot of straight lines, right? And so if someone has an enduring pattern, they're probably gonna carry a little bit of weight around their belly. So they're like a tank. They can endure things. They don't say much, but they can just withstand a lot of life. They just withstand it. They don't say a lot, but they just keep on moving forward no matter what. And
Hmm.
there's other patterns, but as an example, it shows up in how the body, uh, uh, people say, "Oh, it's genetic." I was like, "Well, your parents did raise you, and you did adopt their energetic patterns." And so, if we, so one of my primary energetic pattern was aggressive, which would cause someone to put on a lot of weight and a lot of like do a lot of bench pressing, have bigger, broader shoulders, because an aggressive pattern, when they're overwhelmed, they try to scare things, try to scare other people. So an aggressive pattern, he's the guy, like, if I see somebody across the street and they seem like a threat, I'll puff up my chest. Like, oh yeah? Yeah, I'll fuck you up. So that uh I through my own journey of healing and getting more into my body, I'm now 35 pounds lighter than I was 10 years ago. And the
Nice.
shape of my body is much more uh symmetrical. I'm not overweighted in one area or another. And so these are the energetic patterns, and they're very unique. Every person, we can categorize them, but every person has a distinct signature, like a fingerprint. And then we start getting words, and then we layer our cognitive world, which is made up of words, on top of this really unique energetic pattern. And those words get attached to different energetic patterns. And the words that you learn and the definitions of those words and where they attach to you emotionally are also unique. So, if you're thinking you're a snowflake, you're absolutely right. Um, so the it's incredibly important to be in touch with your emotions, because if you're only working with the rational mind, you're not dealing with the foundation of your consciousness. And the foundation of your consciousness is emotional. And so, uh, a couple years ago, as an example, and I won't claim that I'm completely in touch with every single one of my emotions, and I've mastered this game. I've made a lot of progress. I've been on this game of mapping my emotional body since 2017. So for about 8 years now. I've come a long way. And so, as an example, about a year and a half ago, I was um, going into this retreat, and I went in with it was an ayahuasca retreat, and I was going in with the intention of passion and ease. How do I experience passion and ease? And because I want to have both, right? Most people associate passion with not ease. I have passion. I've got to, like, I've got to like crush things, and I've got all this energy, and I've got to like, it's almost like forceful in a way. Most people experience passion that way. But how do I hold passion and ease? And I find that when I'm at ease is when I experience the most passion now. Like the passion I experience now is nothing like I had in the past. It's much more enjoyable. And in that experience, I got to map out I got to see that most of the lack of ease when pursuing my passion came, and in that particular experience, I was mapping out my experience with my wife. And anytime, where was I showing up differently because I was showing up in the way that I thought that she wanted me to show up for her instead of me being authentic. And that feeling, the feeling that preceded any thoughts, that preceded any behaviors, the feeling that came up that I was unfamiliar with was what was really running the show. And so in a matter of a couple nights and deep meditation with the medicine, I felt that feeling and I didn't run from it. I sat with it and I analyzed it and I was with it. And I didn't analyze it from a cognitive way, like having a conversation. I was feeling it, and it was this sphere inside of me. And I was like, oh, I know this side of the sphere. I'm familiar with this, but I'm not familiar with this side of the sphere. I was like, let's go look at that side. And so emotions are felt. So I'm in this deep meditation and I'm feeling that thing. And as I'm feeling it, all these memories and situations are popping up of, oh, I behaved that way because of this. Oh, I behaved this way because of that. And I just got intimate with it to the point where I was like, I know you now. I know this feeling. I know this emotion. And it no longer has power over me because I know it so well now. And there's nothing to release. It's just I integrated it into who I am. And now if that feeling comes up, I'm like, there you are. I have authority over you. I'm not suppressing you. I'm not telling you to go away. I welcome you, but I'm in control here.
Yeah.
So this is an example of descending into the body. That intelligence that was programming me to behave a certain way that caused me to regret certain things. I was able to then shift that behavior, and I didn't have to consciously shift my behavior or start a new habit or anything like that. I just knew that feeling. And so I walked out of that without without it having control over me. And I started behaving differently. My interactions with my wife changed dramatically. And and she actually had to shift how she was interacting with me. It caused a shift in her as well. And it took her about a month to calibrate. And we were calibrating together, because it was new for me as well. Normally when she does or says this, I respond like that. She does this thing, I don't respond like that now. I don't feel the need to engage with her in the way that she was used to. And she was going, where are you? She goes, you're not responding. But over some time, it actually created a higher level of intimacy because it caused her to shift, and then we were able to be even closer together because the pattern that was existing there previously was actually keeping us apart, not pulling us together. Even though it was physically keeping us engaged, it wasn't emotionally keeping us engaged in a healthy way.
Yeah. I think that's a beautiful example of how the way you approach those emotions changes the behavior, which then shapes a new reality for you. And I just think of that song, like, hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk to you
Yeah.
again. And
Yeah.
really embracing that. And there's scientific studies that back this up. A 2015 study on emotional regulation, current status, and future prospects found that emotional awareness and regulation predict not just well-being, but peak performance across domains. High achievers who integrate emotional intelligence outperform those who rely on discipline alone. And that was a 2015 study. So when it comes to that, I want to transition now, as we only have a couple minutes left in the podcast, into how this works with the current project, the Full Stack community, the Full Stack podcast, which I'm happy to announce that we've launched together. We're doing that podcast together,
Yes.
and it's been a fantastic journey, and I want to encourage folks to check out that podcast as well. But how has the culmination of the knowledge, the philosophies, your approach to life, the experiences of life all come together to now this mission and focus with Full Stack?
Yeah, it's really a mixture of a lot of different things. And so being able to, for me to just describe this to someone right now, they go, okay, that was like cool information. I don't know what to do with that. Like I went through processes. And so what I did we distilled down all the different processes that helped me get from point A to point B. And it's not just me. You're in there. We have Josh in there. Someone else who's done a lot of digging in his life as well. And we're in there and going, okay, how do we identify where people are at? And how do we give them a specific process that helps them get to the next level? How do they have a higher level of awareness? How do they get to a higher level of acceptance of themselves, which then allows them to expand their perspective of the world? Because I know that once we handle what's going on emotionally, the mind opens up. I I, I definitely give people different perspectives or mental models to work with. That's usually part of the process of getting them more into their emotional body and more in touch with their heart. And so I think a lot of times people want to avoid doing like the quote unquote heart work because they don't want to go soft. And so there's you don't have to go soft in the process. Like you want to have you want to be soft here in your heart, but you want to have a focused mind. You want to have both present. And most
Mhm.
people you start talking about the heart and people start thinking about, oh, this hippie who's not really doing anything with their life. They speak softly and this and that. It's like you don't have to give up the mind in order to go into your heart. But what you can do is gain authority over both your mind and your heart and your emotions. And you gain authority of these things, and now you're able to operate from an objective and very compassionate and empathetic place. And when I say it opens your mind, you start seeing the world differently. You're able to make different decisions, and you gain more. Your ability to have the things that you truly desire in this life are just right in front of you. And most people can't see it because of all the programming they've been operating from.
Yeah. So helping folks get away from that programming, find a new approach. Where can folks find the podcast, find the Full Stack community, connect with you, and learn more?
Well, Full Stack Podcast on YouTube. I have my blog always going at bledsoe.life. You can follow the links around that. You can find the Full Stack School community from there. You can also get on the email list there and then get any updates on anything that we're doing. So, yeah, I mean, if you just search Full Stack inside of the school platform, you're going to run into, they're not controlling for different people. There's like 3 different Full Stack communities in there. So the best thing I can tell you right now is go to bledsoe.life and then you'll be able to find links for everything you need there.
Yeah. And for everybody listening or watching, the easiest route is just open up the description in YouTube or scroll down through the show notes. I'll have those links right there for everybody. So it's nice and easy to jump in. Mike, this has been amazing. I do want to ask my last question, which is usually the heaviest, which is why I save it for last. Something tells me you'll have no problem answering it. But what is something you've seen or something that's happened to you that shapes the way you view the world as a man?
Oh man. My relationship with my wife and taking full ownership for that relationship and seeing how she responds to me tells me a lot about myself. And she has been the greatest teacher for me and seeing where I need to work on myself. And also the results becoming obvious. When I'm able to shift something inside of myself, our relationship transforms. And yeah, she's been my greatest teacher.
Yeah. Amen to that. Isn't it amazing how much of a mirror marriage can be?
Total mirror. It's right there in front of you the whole time. It's very hard to ignore.
Exactly. Well, some people do ignore it too long until it's too late. But I'm glad you're looking at right in the eyes, and I hope folks listening are doing the same. So I appreciate you being on, taking the time, and sharing the amazing announcement of the launch that we had together. Performance philosopher, entrepreneur, and conscious leadership coach, helping high-performing men and founders align strength, spirit, and strategy. Mike Bledsoe, thank you for being on the podcast today.
Thank you, Ted.
I'm going to recap some of the gems you left along the way really quick, because I know a lot of listeners are working out, they're cleaning, or maybe they're driving while listening. I already know you're captivated by the episode, but keep your eyes on the road, hands at 10 and 2. I didn't fit in here. For a lot of us as men, especially if you're high performers, if you see the world differently, you don't fit in growing up. I went through the same exact thought process growing up. I used to ask myself, why don't I fit in? Until I realized I was meant to stick out. Our experience is an interpretation. You might think that your experience is the truth of the world, but it's just an interpretation from your perspective. You're a player with a lot of other characters on this earth. However, empathy leads to expansion, and we are powerfully creating our reality. Are you creating your reality with intention, or are you just accepting what is coming your way? Are you living unconsciously, or are you tapping into your subconscious to be more in control and in the driver's seat on what actually comes into your purview? What is your relationship with fear? Do you run from it? Do you run to it? Even if you run away from it, it's still controlling you in some way, shape, or form. Back off or move forward. When you see that fear, what's the decision that you make? And if it's not working how you want, what is out of alignment? A lot of us are looking for the results. We're looking for the outcomes, but we aren't looking at ourselves and what the alignment is and how we are approaching the process. Obsessed without dependence. Can you be obsessed and not dependent on those results? And you need to descend in order to transcend, go down to go up. It's counterintuitive, but like the Chinese finger traps, you can't just pull it apart. You need to relax it, push it together in order to separate. And most of your intelligence is in the body. You can't outthink your way out of your situation. You need to go into the body and feel your way, tap into emotion. And of course, your first language is emotion. So go back to your original language, not English, but the emotion, and find out what it's trying to tell you and how can we experience passion with ease, because that is the secret. Soft heart, focused mind. Appreciate you guys, and continue to track these episodes. Hit that subscribe button to get one every single week. Thank you, Mike. Thank you for making it to the end. Share this episode with somebody else you know can get value from it as well. And you already know I'm going to ask for a rating, because that's the only way you could let us know how well or how bad we're doing. I got thick skin. I could take the feedback. Just be honest with it. And of course, we'll catch you next time. As we always say at the end of the episode, everybody wants the sunshine, but they don't want the rain. But you can't get the pleasure without first the pain. Let's grow.